There's a room in Manhattan where a 26-year-old founder once sat across from a man worth $400 million and lost everything in 11 minutes. Not because his product was weak, not because his numbers were wrong. He lost because his hands were shaking, his voice cracked twice, and the man across the table saw it before a single word of the deal was even discussed. That's not a negotiation. That's a surrender wearing a suit. If you've ever walked out of a room feeling like you gave away more than you got, if you've ever said yes when every part of you wanted to say no just to keep the peace, if you've ever watched someone calmer than you walk away with the better end of the deal while you were still explaining yourself, this video is going to feel uncomfortable. Good. Sit with that. Because today you're going to learn 11 rules. Rules the Stoics lived by nearly 2,000 years ago. Rules that have nothing to do with tricks, scripts, or manipulation tactics you'd find in some overpriced sales course. This is Stoic negotiation for business deals, built on something far more dangerous than persuasion. It's built on control, self-control, the kind that makes the other side nervous before you've said a word. Marcus Aurelius ran an empire while men plotted against him in the same palace he slept in. Seneca negotiated with an emperor who could execute him on a whim. These men didn't win because they were the smartest people in the room. They won because they mastered something almost nobody in business today even tries to master anymore: their own reactions. So stay until the end, because Rule 11 is the one that separates people who close deals from people who get closed on, and I promise you, you're already breaking it without knowing it. Let's start with Rule 1. Detach from the outcome before you walk in. Most people walk into a negotiation already attached to winning it. They've mentally spent the money. They've pictured the signed contract, the handshake, the celebration call to their partner or their spouse. And the moment that picture exists in their head, they've already lost leverage, because now there are two people at the table who want the deal to happen, and only one of them is hiding it. The Stoics called this the dichotomy of control. There are things you can control: your preparation, your composure, your walk-away point. And there are things you cannot control, whether the other person says yes. The amateur spends all their energy trying to force the thing they cannot control. The disciplined negotiator spends all their energy perfecting the thing they can. Epictetus put it simply: some things are up to us, and some things are not. The outcome of this deal was never up to you. Your conduct inside it always was. When you walk into a room needing the deal, your body tells the truth, even when your mouth doesn't. You lean forward too much. You fill silences that don't need filling. You agree to terms 3 minutes after saying they were non-negotiable. The other side isn't reading your slides. They're reading your posture, your breathing, the half-second pause before you answer a hard question. Detachment isn't coldness. It's freedom. It's the ability to say, I would like this deal, but I do not need this deal, and mean it in your bones, not just in your head. Rule 2. Silence is not empty. It's a weapon you're too afraid to use. Watch any room full of professionals, and you'll notice the same disease. The second a silence lasts more than 4 or 5 seconds, someone rushes to fill it. They restate their offer. They add a concession nobody asked for. They explain something that was already understood the first time. Why? Because silence feels like losing. It isn't. Silence is where the other side starts negotiating against themselves. There's an old story about Seneca sitting through hostile questioning without answering immediately, letting the accusation hang in the air until the accuser grew visibly uneasy under the weight of his own words. That discomfort wasn't accidental. It was strategy disguised as patience. The next time you make an offer and the room goes quiet, do not speak. Let it sit. Let it stretch past the point that feels comfortable. Whoever breaks first usually gives something away, a lower number, a softer stance, a hint of desperation they didn't mean to show. Composure under silence is one of the loudest signals of power a person can send without opening their mouth. Rule 3. Your walk-away point is your spine. Without it, you have none. Before any serious negotiation, know exactly the number, the terms, the line you will not cross, and decide it before emotion enters the room. Because once you're sitting across from someone applying pressure, once the stakes feel real and personal, your mind will try to renegotiate with itself. It will whisper that maybe this one exception is fine, that maybe just this once you can bend the line you swore you wouldn't. The person who decides their limit in a calm moment, days before the meeting, negotiates from strength. The person who decides it in the heat of the room negotiates from fear, and fear always pays more than it needed to. We're only 3 rules in, and already you can probably see moments in your own past deals where you broke every one of them without realizing it. That's normal. What's not normal is continuing to walk into rooms unprepared for what's coming next, because Rule 4 is about to expose something most entrepreneurs do the moment they feel even slightly disrespected. And it's costing them more than they think. Rule 4. The moment you feel disrespected, your instinct is to prove them wrong. That instinct is the trap. Someone across the table lowballs you. Someone questions your numbers in a tone that feels almost insulting. Someone leans back and says something like, "Honestly, I'm not sure you're worth what you're asking." And in that second, something primal takes over. You want to defend yourself. You want to explain, justify, prove your value with more words, more data, more urgency in your voice. Most entrepreneurs walk directly into this trap because it feels like standing up for themselves. It isn't. It's losing your center for the price of someone else's comment. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the best revenge is not to be like your enemy. In a negotiation, the equivalent is simple. The best response to disrespect is not matching their tone, it's refusing to be moved by it at all. When you over-explain, when you get defensive, when your voice speeds up even slightly, you've just confirmed that their comment landed. You've handed them information about exactly where your insecurity lives. And once someone finds that spot, they will press on it again and again for the rest of the conversation, because it works. The disciplined response is almost boring by comparison. A pause, a calm restating of your position, without heat, without extra justification. That's my number, nothing more. The silence that follows does more work than any defense ever could, because now the other person is left wondering if their pressure tactic actually worked, or if it just bounced off someone who wasn't playing their game. Rule 5. Never negotiate against yourself. This one sounds obvious until you watch how often it happens in real rooms. You make an offer. The other side doesn't respond immediately. Maybe they're just thinking. Maybe they stepped out to take a call. Maybe there's a genuine reason for the delay. And before they've even replied, you've already lowered your own offer in your head, sometimes out loud, because the silence made you nervous. That's negotiating against yourself. You're doing the other side's job for them, for free. Stoic philosophy teaches restraint of judgment, holding back from assuming the worst before evidence arrives. Applied here, it means when you make an offer, you let it exist exactly as it is until you get an actual response. Not a guessed response, not an imagined one, an actual one. Anxiety wants you to fill gaps with worst-case scenarios. Discipline says, wait for the facts. Rule 6. Anger is expensive, and someone else is trying to make you pay for it. There's a specific moment that happens in almost every tense negotiation. Someone says something calculated to provoke you, a jab about your experience, a comment that questions your competence, sometimes even something personal. It's rarely accidental. It's designed to knock you off balance long enough to extract a concession while your judgment is compromised. Seneca wrote an entire work on anger, calling it a temporary madness, because in that state, a person will say and agree to things their calm self never would. The moment you feel your blood rise in a negotiation, understand exactly what's happening. You are no longer negotiating with your full intelligence. You're negotiating with the reactive, wounded part of your mind, and that part makes terrible deals. The fix isn't suppressing the anger and pretending it doesn't exist. It's noticing it the instant it arrives, naming it internally, and refusing to let it speak for you. I notice I'm frustrated right now. That single internal sentence, said silently to yourself mid-conversation, can be the difference between a deal that serves you and one you'll regret for years. Rule 7. Preparation is the real source of your calm, not confidence tricks. People assume composure in a negotiation comes from personality, that some people are just naturally cool under pressure and others aren't. That's mostly false. Real composure comes from knowing the terrain so completely that surprises stop feeling like threats. Before Marcus Aurelius made a decision as emperor, he had already spent years training his mind through discipline and study, so that when pressure arrived, he wasn't improvising his character in the moment. He was simply being who he had already built himself to be. Apply that to business deals. Know their numbers before you sit down. Know your own numbers cold enough that you never have to pause to calculate them live, because a pause while doing math looks exactly like a pause of uncertainty to the person watching you. Know 3 likely objections and your response to each before they're even raised. When you've done that kind of preparation, very little in the room can actually rattle you, because you've already lived through the conversation in your head a dozen times before it happened once in reality. This is where Stoic negotiation actually separates itself from every generic sales tactic you've been taught. It's not about sounding confident. It's about being so prepared and so internally steady that confidence becomes the natural byproduct instead of something you're performing. We're 7 rules deep now, and if you've been honest with yourself through this, you've probably already spotted the exact deal in your past where breaking 2 or 3 of these cost you real money, maybe more than you'd like to admit out loud. But Rule 8 is where things shift from defense to something far more aggressive, because there's a specific way disciplined people apply pressure without ever raising their voice, and once you see it, you won't be able to unsee it in every room you walk into from now on. Rule 8. Pressure without volume is the most dangerous tool at the table. Most people think applying pressure in a negotiation means raising your voice, pushing harder, repeating your demand with more intensity. That's amateur pressure, and experienced negotiators see right through it. Real pressure is quiet. It's a longer pause than expected after they finish speaking. It's a simple question asked without any emotion behind it, like, is that really your final position? Delivered so flatly that it forces the other person to actually reconsider instead of just reacting to your tone. Cato the Younger was known for standing firm in the Roman Senate against enormous political pressure, not through shouting matches, but through an unmoving, almost unnerving stillness that made his opponents work twice as hard just to get a reaction out of him. That stillness was the pressure. People in power are used to being pushed loudly, and they've built defenses for it. They are far less prepared for someone who stays calm and simply refuses to move. The next time you want to apply pressure in a deal, try removing volume from the equation entirely. Lower your voice slightly instead of raising it. Slow your pace instead of speeding up. You'll notice the other person leans in. They start working harder to read you, and that effort alone shifts the balance of the room in your favor. Rule 9. Concessions without conditions teach people to keep asking. This is one of the most expensive habits in business, and almost nobody notices they're doing it. Someone asks for a small concession. You give it just to keep things moving smoothly, to avoid friction, to seem easy to work with. It feels harmless in the moment. But you've just taught them something important, that pushing on you produces results with no cost attached. Every concession you make should come with a condition attached to it, even a small one. I can move on that number if we lock the payment terms today. Not as a threat, just as a fact of how negotiation works. The Stoics understood that character is revealed and reinforced through consistent action, not through good intentions. If your actions consistently give ground for free, that becomes your character in this negotiation, whether you meant it to or not. This single habit alone, attaching a condition to every concession, will change how people negotiate with you permanently, because word travels. People remember who gives things away easily and who doesn't, and they adjust their opening offers accordingly the next time they sit across from you. Rule 10. The best negotiators are comfortable being disliked in the moment. Somewhere along the way, a lot of entrepreneurs absorbed the idea that being well-liked is the same thing as being good at business. It isn't. In fact, the need to be liked is one of the most expensive weaknesses you can carry into a room where money is on the line, because the person who needs approval will always, eventually, trade value for it. Epictetus said that if you want to improve, you have to be willing to be thought foolish. In negotiation terms, that means being willing to hold an uncomfortable silence, willing to say no without softening it into something apologetic, willing to let the other person be mildly annoyed with you for 30 seconds instead of caving just to restore a pleasant mood. The discomfort you feel in that moment is not a signal that you're doing something wrong. It's usually a signal that you're finally negotiating like someone who values the deal more than the applause. This doesn't mean being cold or difficult on purpose. It means understanding that a slightly tense room is often just the sound of a fair deal being worked out. And the person who panics at that tension and rushes to smooth it over is almost always the one who ends up paying for that comfort. And now, Rule 11. The one I told you at the start that you're probably already breaking without realizing it. Rule 11. You are not negotiating with them. You are negotiating with yourself, and they're just in the room. Every rule before this one was really pointing at the same target. Your attachment to the outcome, your reaction to disrespect, your discomfort with silence, your need to be liked. None of that lives in the other person. It lives in you. The other side in any negotiation is simply applying pressure to whatever weaknesses already exist inside you. They didn't create your fear of confrontation. They just found it and used it because you handed it to them without noticing. This is the entire foundation of Stoic negotiation in business deals. It was never really about outsmarting the person across the table. It's about becoming someone who has already mastered their own mind before they ever sat down. Once you've done that internal work, the external negotiation almost handles itself. Because you stop reacting to pressure and start simply observing it, calmly deciding what you will and won't accept, the same way you'd watch weather pass outside a window instead of getting soaked standing in it. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire, buried people he loved, faced betrayal from men he trusted, and still wrote to himself every night about staying grounded, staying fair, staying unmoved by things outside his control. If a man carrying that much weight could master his own reactions, there is no deal, no difficult client, no aggressive investor sitting across from you that should be able to take your composure from you without your permission. That's the real edge nobody talks about in business school. Not the tactics, not the scripts. The stillness underneath all of it. If this actually shifted how you're going to walk into your next deal, don't just scroll past it and forget by tomorrow. Hit like so this reaches the next founder who needs to hear it before their next negotiation. Drop a comment with the rule that hit closest to home and subscribe to Stoic Founder. Because this is exactly the kind of thinking we build here every single week. One rule, one deal, one steadier version of you at a time.